The US had to shut down economy to reduce the risk of spread of COVID-19. Some states are slowing or pausing their reopening plans as the cases of new infections are on the rise again. People and businesses are facing financial hardships, record unemployment, and reduction in personal spending has resulted in the biggest drop in US GDP in Q2 by 32.9%. My name is Sunny and welcome to my channel Sunnysnippets. Here I try to declutter some of the latest news, make it simple to understand so that my audience is well informed. The full form of GDP is gross domestic product. GDP is the monetary value of all the finished goods and services made within a country in a specific period of time. It provides an economic snapshot of a country which includes size and growth of the economy. According to the World Bank, the GDP of US was $21.42 trillion in 2019. Its GDP accounts for about 17.65% of the world economy as seen in the charts. Based on the GDP, US is the largest economy in the world. According to the US Department of Commerce, GDP reduced at an annual rate of 32.9% in Q2 of 2020. As seen in the graph, the real GDP fell off the cliff in Q2. Economists surveyed by Dow Jones were expecting a decline of 34.7%, so you can say it was better than expected. Neither the Great Depression nor any other slump in the US over the past 2 centuries have ever caused such a sharp drain on the economy. As seen from this US economic booms and bust chart, Q2 in 1921 during the Great Depression, GDP fell by 28.6%. The worst quarter during financial crisis of 2008 was Q4 when the GDP fell by 8.4%. So this is the sharpest fall in the US GDP in recorded history. It is reflected by sharp reduction in the following: personal consumption, exports, fixed residential and non-residential investments, state and local spending. It is partially offset by an increase in federal government stimulus spending. Steep reduction in personal consumption, which accounts for about 2/3 of the US GDP alone, accounted for about 25% GDP fall. The partial shutdown of the economy, stay-at-home orders along with the social distance rules has resulted in a sharp economic slowdown, which is reflected in the decline in Q2 GDP. The government-induced shutdown to combat the pandemic resulted in shutdown of business activity, and thus US has high unemployment rate. This resulted in people having less disposable income and therefore reduction in personal spending. The full impact of economic shutdown was somewhat cushioned by government stimulus to business and people. Federal Reserve Chairman said, US economy is showing signs of slow economic recovery because of rising COVID-19 cases. According to Johns Hopkins University, there are over 4 million reported cases of COVID-19 in the US, with the death toll of over 150,000. The chart shows confirmed, recovered, and the deaths in the US as the pandemic spread and flared up in the southern half of the country. He said the consumer spending appears to be softening again along with slow job growth. The Fed has already slashed interest rates to almost 0% and having restarted asset purchases from the market as a lender of last resort. According to the Fed, the recovery path of the economy will depend significantly on the course of the virus. All the major US indices, Dow Jones, S&P 500 and NASDAQ all fell on the news of record GDP drop along with a rise again of jobless claims. The US weekly jobless claims came at 1.4 million. This has taken the total 2-week jobless claim tally to 17 million, up from 16 million last week. So the rise of new COVID-19 cases along with higher unemployment numbers will have a double whammy effect on the US economy, thus affecting the US GDP. Historic levels of unemployment, flare up in new COVID-19 cases, lifting of moratorium on statewide evictions as protections for renters in CARES Act gone, millions of Americans are on the verge of losing their homes. Families have run out of money and options, with most of them months behind on rent. About 25 million Americans will stop receiving the weekly $600 federal unemployment checks by the end of July. Many experts are saying that up to 40 million Americans may lose their homes, which is 4 times the amount seen during the Great Recession. Unless we stop the rise of new COVID-19 infections, it will be very difficult for the economy to come back to normal. This second wave of coronavirus infections is much more stronger and widespread than the first one. So it's a classic case of saving life over limb. Overpowering the COVID-19 spread should be the first priority. Economy and finally the GDP will automatically fall in place. Since the vaccination and the treatment is not available right now, so social distance seems to be the only way out. This is my take, where I have tried to declutter the reasons and effects of historic drop in US GDP in Q2. If you have found value in the content that I make, please help me and my channel by subscribing, liking and sharing it. Press the notification button to get notified about the latest videos that I make. Thanks for watching. See you next time on your channel, Sunnysnippets.